Hello and welcome back to the Anime Asylum, the only podcast we are legally required to talk about your favorite animes. Today we have a very special guest, Quinn from No Pain No Wane. How about you introduce yourself?
Hey, it's me, Quinn. That's the first time my name's ever been said. Yeah, I'm from No Pain, No Wayne, the podcast where we watch every single John Wayne Western in order of release. So, yeah, I mean, that's about it. That's
Yeah,
the gist of it.
fantastic podcast. I'm enjoying every episode.
Glad to hear it.
Uh,
Good to hear what someone is.
so should we dive right into this? So
Yeah.
we are covering this week Stardust Crusaders, which is the third part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and it's got a bit of a Western theme to it, hence No Pain No Wane. So,
Oh, it's very, very Western.
mhm,
I mean, Araki's blatant, especially in the promotional material for it. You know
yeah.
Jotaro's iconic gun pose where he's pointing it like at the screen?
Oh yeah,
That's a direct inspiration of Clint Eastwood. He does
really?
that pose in Dirty Harry. Yeah. Oh, Jotaro is directly inspired a lot by Clint Eastwood.
I did not know that. But yeah,
There-
now that I'm looking at it, that's for sure. I can definitely
Yeah,
see that.
it's super interesting.
So, for folks at home who don't want to watch through an entire part of JoJo, we should probably explain the main. Well, part three introduced the main gimmick, which now is through all of JoJo, which is stands.
Hmm.
Uh, those come about through various methods, like sometimes there will be corpse parts, sometimes you'll just have a stand, sometimes you get shot with an arrow, but those are manifestations of your soul that are basically superpowers. And they come in all different varieties. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a buff dude, sometimes it stops time.
Hmm. I'd like to throw a little thing just for people. It's not so much your soul, but they specifically in part three, it's your fighting spirit is the idea, and that
Oh yeah.
shifts a lot over the course of the series. But right here, it's specifically that fighting human nature that makes you bold, sort of, is the idea.
So, well, let's get into episode one and we'll just bounce around from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, we start out with Jotaro Kujo, who's the grandson of Joseph Joestar, who was from part two. And he has locked himself up because he's acquired a stand and he's freaking out in his most literal way possible.
Yeah, he believes he's been haunted. So he just went to jail and put himself in a jail cell. And I guess no one stopped him. They just let him do that.
I mean, how, would you stop him?
Oh man. I don't think you could. Yeah. And he's just in this jail cell full of random garbage. He's got a bicycle in there, a weight set, a
How
bunch
did
of books.
how did he even get that stuff? Like they say Star Platinum brought him stuff, but then they never used that power like ever again. Like his range isn't that big.
I believe the idea is that his like stand range is it changes a lot. But in
Yeah.
that moment, when they say he's got a short range, I think that's his combat and like his extreme physical capabilities. But like as he goes farther away, he becomes weaker.
Yeah.
So at distance, he can still grab things and manipulate objects, but he couldn't fight a stand well at that range.
Fair enough.
I
Yeah.
think it's never
It,
said.
it there's some weird contradictions. Like you later in part four, they say range is just how far echoes can go, but then you know,
Mhm. Yeah,
uh,
the
it's
rules are real loose.
yeah, whatever happens, happens. So Joseph goes and visits Jojo because Joseph is a stand user. He was a stand user in part 2, I believe, but he just didn't realize it yet. Is that correct, or am I way off bar?
Um, yeah, I think you're right. There's also, I've heard the explanation is that they developed their powers after Dio stabbed Jonathan's body with the arrow, and it kind of rippled through their family because of that.
Yeah, I've heard. I believe that's more. I I like that for Jotaro and Holly, Jotaro's mother, but I
Hmm.
believe I feel like Joseph just had too much going for him in part
Yeah.
2.
There's also the idea that that's just the Hamon stand,
Probably. Well,
because you see, Jonathan's body has the same vine-like thing coming out of it
oh yeah,
that Dio uses once to take a. I think he does take a soul photo to see where they are once, and I think that's the implication because you can't have more than one stand.
yeah. It's 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 bizarre. Just
Ah, he said it. He said it. Roll credits. We're good. We're done.
back it up, boys. So so Joseph he explained stance to Jotaro, that whole fighting
Hmm.
spirit manifestation, and he brings along Avdol, who is
Yes.
an Egyptian dude who Joseph met,
Hmm.
and they they hang out because again Dio stabbed himself with an arrow, and that's causing stands to appear throughout the bloodline. So Jotaro got one. Uh, some other people in the Joestar family got one, but Holly hasn't manifested hers yet, so they're worried about her.
Yes.
So
They, there's a fun action scene in the
yeah,
um jail cell where Jotaro goes to shoot himself with a gun, but Star Platinum catches the bullet midair. This is where we get to see how fast and
precise.
precise. There's a good word for um, his stand. His stand ability is precision,
Hmm.
extreme speed, until it is until it's changed with one of the most famous ass pulls in I think anime history. But that's for the end of the part.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
And then I'll gripe a little bit about how part 8 is viewed because of that. We'll get there. Let's. I think we should jump ahead a bit. Gonna
Yeah.
assume people who are listening to this
Uh,
know about part 3 a little bit, right? Is that a good fair assumption?
from what I've heard from my audience, they know nothing about JoJo.
Oh,
So I'm,
fantastic.
yeah, I
Never
know.
mind.
I think we explain Kikoin and maybe Polnareff, and then we bounce out,
Yeah.
right?
So they're in Japan right now, and it's traditional anime things where they have the first fight or two, they beat the guy, and the guy joins the party. That's sort of the gist of it. So you've got Kakyoin, right? Which
Yeah.
happens at the school.
Hmm.
They,
And there's some weird stuff with him. Like he paints and it breaks Jotaro's leg, and then he possesses the school nurse.
yeah. Which, yeah, it's all supposed to be like red herrings for what his ability is, because that's a big part of the show, is trying to guess what someone's ability is before they show it, trying to figure out what this person can do. So I kind of think Kakyoin was just kind of fucking with him with the painting, and then the puppet
Mhm. And then he
comes up
didn't even use
later.
his signature attack until like the very end.
Yeah, it's great. And then that's his only power. Oh, and yeah, the Emerald Splash. He's got Hierophant Green. But we should mention all of the
Oh
stands
yeah,
are based off of tarot cards in this part only.
and only
That's
for
the
the
sort of
first half
naming
of the part.
gimmick. Yeah, and then they become Egyptian gods, but they all have sort of naming schemes. So we've got Star Platinums after the Star card. Um,
Uh,
Magician's Red, Magician card.
Hermit Purple
Hermit
is the
Purple.
Hermit,
Hmm.
and then Hierophant Green is Hierophant. And then
Yeah.
we also have Silver Chariot, which is Polnareff Stand, who is another guy they beat up and joins them. He's
Yep.
French, so
He's
yeah.
French in the loosest way. It really doesn't have any impact on his character now that I'm really thinking about it. Polnareff is so barely French.
He's just he's just there. I think his hair is the most French thing about him, and that's not even very French.
It's not French at all. It's very Japanese. Part 3 is very much the main character is supposed to be Japanese American, and there's just straight Japanese, Egyptian, American, and French, but they're all kind of just Japanese.
I forgot Coin was American.
Kakyoin's Japanese, but Joseph is American.
Oh yeah, I it always confuses me because he goes to Egypt. Kikkoin goes to Egypt. He sees Dio, and then he comes back. It's
Hmm.
so dumb.
Uh, and they can all speak every language. They're completely fine. I think in canon, everyone's just speaking English.
Yeah,
That's the
the
only
darkest timeline.
way. The darkest time. We all speak English.
Yeah.
Don't watch
So
the dub, by the way. If you're gonna watch this show, don't watch. I would highly recommend not watching the dub
oh
to
yeah,
anyone listening. It's so much worse.
and then you miss out on all the song references like
Hmm.
Boingo Boingo or fucking I don't.
Uh,
That's the only one from
Muhammad
part three I know.
Abdul used to be Abdul, like what's her name? Julia
Paula
Abdul,
Abdul.
country Paul Abdul. There you go, country singer. And there's a couple more smattered throughout.
If we think of them, we'll say them.
Yeah.
So Jojo's mom, Holly, her stand is manifesting, but she doesn't have the fighting spirit of the rest of the Joestars. So she is going to die in like 50 days if they don't defeat Dio. So that sets
Hmm.
out this whole adventure where they have to go to Egypt, and along the way they'll face various stand users, and not all of them are important. Like one's just a bug, one of them shapeshifts. So we're just
Yeah.
gonna bounce around and find anything that we think is cool if it's the theme.
Yeah.
Of
And
so you got any stands you want to talk about?
my favorite stand fight in the part is with Darby the Elder
Oh, fucking love that. That's
because I love poker. I really enjoy poker. It's my one of my favorite games of all time.
mhm.
And that's the stand fight is these two characters just gambling. It's a really interesting take because there's no fighting. I like when Jojo fights aren't literal fights. They're metaphorical and it's trying to outwit the the opponent basically. And that's exactly what happens because they just play a game of poker, but instead of gambling with uh, money, they're gambling with their souls, which is hardcore, right?
It's so cool. And like that he's already beaten two of the other party. He beat Polnareff and Joseph at their own game.
Hmm.
So the stakes are really high in that episode for no apparent. Like everyone else, every other episode, it's like, yeah, this guy could be a problem, but that one is like, they could instantly end there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I kind of want to avoid spoiling it just a little bit because it's a really good episode.
It is
But
fantastic. Yeah.
if that sounds interesting, it's worth the watch. It's just a two characters basically bluffing one another with raising the stakes on how much they're gonna bet their souls. Very, it's very bluesy. The idea of gambling basically with the devil, this person who could steal your soul from you,
Mhm.
which is almost a music reference in itself because it's so part of that history, the history of blues and rock and roll.
Mhm.
I feel like that has to have been an inspiration for Iraqi.
For sure. Uh, I have one stand from the first half of part 3 that just stands out to me, and that is strength.
Strength. I can't remember the name. What
It's
was?
the ship. The f- it's the fucking
Oh,
monkey.
that one. Oh man,
And
you better explain yourself quick, Liam.
so as they're traveling to Egypt, they get stranded in the middle of the ocean and they come across a ship. And that ship is the entire ship is a stand. And the stand user is a fucking orangutan who tries to rape a girl. And
A child.
yeah, specifically a young
She's
girl.
14.
And
Fuck.
it was just that is when I knew the series was going off the fucking rails.
That
Because
episode almost made me stop watching.
that's fair
It was
enough.
so gross.
God,
It's so gross. You literally see an orangutan sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl in the shower. It's horrifying, dude.
probably not the best episode to start on, but you know.
But you took us here, brother. Now you gotta steer this ship out of there.
So,
You brought us into rocky waters.
speaking of animals with stands, there's also Iggy, who joins the party
Oh
at the.
god, yeah, Iggy.
He he had a really nice arc, I think, throughout Egypt. Like he went from joke character to actually important. I'm pretty sure.
Were you able to like take him seriously?
Um,
'Cause
like
all,
during.
all his whole existence, it really took me. Like this is such a silly series, but Iggy, this is I'm speaking as someone who doesn't watch a lot of anime, right? That's an
Yeah,
important thing. And so the tropes hit different with me when they show up. And I was immediately taken out of this world where I'm like, okay, I get the rules, your fighting spirit, all of that. I can buy that. But a dog that like, has a weird kind of human face, farting everywhere, and having human intelligence.
I mean,
That was a little too cartoony for
I
me.
that's fair. I wasn't a big fan of Iggy till the pet shop fight because
Yeah.
that really solidified him as an actual character, and he only gets like 3 or 4 episodes after that. But you know,
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
was just a really cool moment and interesting to see him, who was almost he was just comic relief for the first half of Egypt, and then actually being a useful character was really cool.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely agree with you. He won a lot of points back with that fight.
Mhm.
But like, didn't you feel like there's such a build up to Dio and Egypt? As a
Oh,
viewer, I was kind of like, this is so epic. I'm excited for high stakes, content because it's a long part. It's really long.
it doesn't. Yeah, it compared to some other parts, it doesn't feel like it, but it is a fairly long part.
Mhm. And just once you get to Egypt, I was like, okay, tail end. They've traveled across the world. I'm kind of thinking it's gonna pick up, and then this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It completely cranks down the pace, and we watch a dog fight a hawk, which is it's both incredibly high stakes because it's over where Dio is and its information, but also it's a dog fighting a bird. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I but it really pulls you in, which
It
I
does.
feel it's
It's a
it's
well-crafted story, 100%.
mhm, it's just again, it's just bizarre.
It is. It's at that part in the story, I was kind of hoping for more Jotaro characterization. Because he's not really actually a character much in part 3.
I think Whole Horse is more of a character than him. We'll get to Whole
Easily.
Horse.
Oh, easily. Jotaro has the least characterization out of anyone in the group.
Yeah, he's, it's weird for a protagonist. He's like the most uh I don't most Western protagonist, like stone-faced, absolutely just badass.
Hmm.
That
You don't see any of his humanity. He's really inhuman with how he acts.
yeah.
Because he doesn't
And
emote.
I you get a little bit more of that in later parts, but he does stay just one of those
Mhm.
absolutely stone-faced individuals.
You get a lot more dialogue from him, though, in the later parts, which is weird because everyone talks around Jotaro. You know what I mean? Like Joseph, I think talks more in the part.
I mean, but it's Joseph. He is the most emote. Like,
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I was more invested in his story than Jotaro's for most of the part.
I think a good way to characterize this like the whole group dynamic is you remember the submarine scene where
Yes.
they're all sinking? I think a good part is when Coin and Polnareff, they're messing around and they have that amazing handshake. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that
And then
awesome handshake.
and then Joseph is just fucking yelling at them and Jotaro, he's off to the side. You barely see him. Like
Hmm.
that kind of characterizes a lot of hit the story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
It's bizarre. It's weird. And I'm not sure how I'm supposed to be engaging with this character because I've seen like online in the discourse, oh, Jotaro is my favorite character. And it's so hard for me to understand because he's just the wall of badass and he always wins.
I think that might be why some people like him because he doesn't throw anything unexpected at you. Like
You know what?
he's
You're right. If you like that, you get 100% of that.
mhm. Which might have also caused some discourse for part 6. I mean, part 6 does have a lot of story flaws, but that could have also caused a lot of
You know what? Yeah, that's an interesting point. This part 6 is about Jotaro's daughter in prison, and you get to see a lot more emotion from him. And he doesn't win. He loses. The two fights he's in, he loses.
yeah.
Which I really like those parts.
Mm,
He's I'm so much more interested in his character. But also, maybe you can answer this question because it's one I've had. I feel like Jotaro is the most shonen protagonist. And you're going through all of them, where he
Uh,
just sort of goes from fight to fight. His character stays the same, and he wins. And that's sort of what he does.
well, the interesting thing I've been seeing with the shonens I've been watching is that a lot of the characters don't win. Like a lot of the protagonists are
Okay.
failing. Like you take Naruto and he doesn't beat Sasuke,
Hmm.
or you take Shinji and he's constantly depressed. Like
Is
these are
is
characters
does Evangelion really count as when people think shonen though?
that is fair. But I
People
think
think Dragon Ball,
yeah,
One
they think
Piece,
One Piece,
Naruto. Those
but
are the
even
big three.
like for sure Dragon Ball, you get that absolutely no
Hmm.
motion. But then One Piece, yes, Luffy does win, but all the characters around him and Luffy himself do have to go through struggles and actually
Hmm.
learn and grow,
Yeah.
which I mean, I'm I've barely dipped my toes into shonen, but that's what I've seen so far.
Hmm. That's just sort of a question I've always had in my mind because he doesn't immediately win, but by the end of the episode or the second episode, because they're usually 2 episode arcs, first half, second half, he will do one thing that completely beats the enemy. And that always felt very anime to me, that
Oh
part
yeah,
of the
for sure.
story. Whereas we've got to have these little fights interspersed where at the first half it's hard and then the second half win. No matter what, something will occur in that second half to cause victory. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere. Usually it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the reason I point that out is because that doesn't happen in the second half of JoJo.
Oh yeah. Like
Part 7, 8, currently 9, that is not what happens.
you could even say that for later parts of 6.
Yeah, the entire second half of Part 6 is one big thing, pretty much.
Yeah, like I don't want to spoil that, but after Green Baby, it seems like just one big losing streak.
Hmm. Yeah,
Which
and then there's the triumphant moment isn't with the title character. And that's fascinating. That's really interesting as a decision. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it's just sort of as I went through the series, even part 4 is pretty similar,
Mhm.
where it just feels more cohesive. And it's not just a giant winning streak. I mean, it still is. You need to
Yeah,
have that in a serialized piece of media. But there's less of it.
I think a lot of that was part 4 and onward kind of focused on side characters a lot more, like
Hmm.
Koichi, the whole Passion group, and part 6 you got Foo Fighters and
Yeah.
Eris, which they really help round out which because Jo it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. JoJo has to continue on, but these side characters, you don't know if they're gonna make it to the end because as we see in part 3, not everyone makes it to the end of part 3.
Yeah. Most of them don't. Which is it again, I really like that part. That's a fantastic decision, I think. Add some stakes to it.
Mm. I think we can definitely see Araki toying around with that in part 3 because you have uh Emperor and the Hanged Man episode, and that
Hmm.
you have Avdol. He doesn't die in this episode, but it looks like he did,
Yeah.
and that uh, it raised the stakes a lot, but then they still were able to just win.
Hmm.
And
And
then
I feel that's a
15
really
episodes
good
later,
balance. Yeah, then they 15 episodes later, they fully undercut that moment for really no reason.
I mean, I like having Abdul back, but then it didn't really have a purpose.
Yeah, it's so unsatisfying when he comes back because he doesn't do anything between his return and his second death. That's not a spoiler. I feel like that's well known.
I mean, yeah, he does. I'm looking through the episode list and I'm trying to see if I can, like, he comes back very end of the first half,
He
I think.
pisses on a guy with pole in the ref.
And then I think he's involved in maybe two fights. He's involved in the Mariah fight,
Hmm.
which is mostly a Joseph fight. He's just kind of there to raise the stakes a little bit, and then he's doesn't really do anything till the Cream fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know why he's brought back, because nothing he does couldn't have been done by another
Yeah.
character.
Like, he's there for Darby the Gambler, and all he does is say, "I'm not good at fight." He's not a gambler.
Hmm.
And then after that, we're pretty much on Dio's doorstep, where
Yeah.
everything comes to an end.
Yeah, it really feels like an editor's note
Mhm.
that they wanted to have more death around the Dio fight to make that feel more intense, but they didn't have enough characters with enough weight to kill off, so they had to bring him back quick just to
Yeah.
kill him off again. That's a
I mean,
very cynical way of looking at it, but that it feels right.
yeah. And it's kind of disappointing for the character. Like, he gets almost nothing. Like, I don't like Kikoin has kind of the same thing. Like, he gets out of commission for half of the part, and then he comes back, and then he dies. But yeah,
Hmm. And I think he wanted you to have the joy of him coming back undercut was the idea for the reader, but I just don't know if it, as a serial, week by week, it probably landed a lot better.
oh yeah, because I know I binged this entire season like within 2, 3 days. So I probably didn't get the full effect of it.
Yeah. Probably having a weeks to digest that he was dead, and then a couple weeks to get used to him being back.
Yeah,
I can see
I
that working better there.
and then you get all like the theories for which would really and that really helps. Like parts 3 and 4 definitely benefit from a weekly release because
Oh,
they've
4 definitely.
oh yeah, per,
Yeah.
I I don't know if I could have made it through 4 if I was going weekly, but I definitely could see how much it would have changed
Mhm.
the experience, maybe enhanced it.
With the discourse, here's the one thing with JoJo that always bothered me is that at least within the shonen parts before they went to Ultra Jump,
Mhm.
is that they had these amazing concepts that were always held back by the fact that they had to be a shonen and had to have a fight every week. Like the idea of traveling the world, hunting down a vampire and looking for clues and trying to track him down, awesome. But they never really lean into that. You know what I mean? That's never the focus of the episodes. That's the focus
Yeah,
of the story, but not the episode by episode stuff. And in part 4, the idea of a serial killer with magic powers, basically, it's completely hidden and has the perfect stand for getting away with murder. That's terrifying. But it's not really about that for most of the part. Most of the
Yeah,
part is these random fucking goobers who just happen to be in Morio.
yeah,
Like they
we
have
just
nothing to do with it.
there's just the entire Tony episode, which and then the whole
Like,
Shigechi stuff. I just kind of brought me out of it.
yeah, Shigechi. Are people supposed to feel bad when Shigechi dies?
I didn't. I
I didn't at
I know
all.
some people did, but I didn't.
Dude, that's how I feel about most of JoJo, where people are like, "Oh, I love this character. I felt this moment." I'm like, "Did you really?" It's so like I love it, but it's a really sloppy series, and the first 6 parts are
I
that
definitely got
part
more
part
attached.
two. Part two is really focused on the Pillar Man,
Hmm.
and I like that.
That's
And
it's
it's
probably my
short.
favorite part.
Part three, they're focused on Dio, but they get sidetracked a lot. And it's weird. The idea that Dio's just sending people individually is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah,
if he paired any two of those stand users up, they would win.
I
Like,
he does eventually kind of remix it, but then it's it's the very low stakes stands that, don't
like,
really require.
like Oingo Boingo,
Yeah, Oingo
the
Boingo or
the
Oingo Horse,
comedy
Whole
stand.
Horse.
hmm
Or is it Boingo, Whole Horse? I don't.
Whole
That was
Horse
Boingo.
and Boingo.
Yeah, like Oingo and Boingo was a really cool idea. I liked them, but then the episode just was a comedy, and then
Yeah. And it's that kind of corny anime comedy where you have to really like it.
mhm,
You know what I mean? That happens a lot in part three. Like super in your face anime thing. Like the weird homophobic stuff with Avdol and Joseph. The
that was
like
funny.
breast expansion. The 14-year-old girl, everything going on with her. The
Yeah,
baby eating shit.
Death
There,
13, yeah, for sure.
yeah, there's a lot of that. And every time it happens, like, oh my god, that's so cringe. That's so cringy, right? It's just like, ugh. I'm not feeling the right emotion. I'm not laughing. I'm just thinking. It reminds me that I'm watching anime, and it fully takes me out of it. Yeah, you have that
Yeah.
same thing
I mean, I
with
not as
some of
much
those bits.
for some of those bits, yeah, but I I feel like I can suspend my disbelief enough to just
hmm
be able to enjoy it in the moment. Like if I look back on it, I'll be like, I don't really want to watch that episode, but if if I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah. Again, this just comes from me. It's probably just a lack of tolerance to these tropes
Hmm.
and exposure to them.
I mean, yeah, like a good a good episode that I feel like is the whole Sun episode because that one it
hmm
it like for the first half it's like really intense and then it just goes completely joke wise for the next half, which was
Yeah. That's a fun thing. Yeah.
yeah,
That's just a good joke. I feel like that's well constructed humor of the bait and switch. This
it's good.
undefeatable stand until you find the rock. And the whole thing falls apart.
I think it's good because it was one of those rare instances where it was the fight over a single episode instead of over 2 episodes.
Definitely. Oh, that would completely fall apart if they stretched that to two.
Hmm. Um, do we have any other stands we want to talk about? Fights or whatever? Or should we go to Dio?
I think we go to Dio. I think we
I
just talk spoiler warning and talk about the end
I
of the
know we kind
part.
of wanted to talk about Whole Horse because, the whole Western bit, but he's kind of just he's a one-trick pony. He just shoots a
Hmm.
gun homes on it.
He's
He's
a frustrating character because his ability is so good, but it's never used to its ability because he instantly win. He can
and then he
manipulate where bullets go. Like none of the characters can dodge a bullet except for Jotaro. He should be able to kill everyone except for Jotaro easily.
I mean,
Easily.
Polnareff might be able to stop a bullet, maybe.
Maybe, but he could shoot multiple and have them completely surround him.
I mean, yeah, but you have that whole Pol- Polnareff introduced where he just cuts through fire,
Oh
but
my
tower
god.
scaling.
I forgot. I forgot he cut through fire. That's insane. I forgot. Polnareff can't do anything that impressive afterwards, though.
I mean,
He's
the
not-
closest he gets is Anubis, and that's not even
Mhm.
him anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. God, that's a great thing to bring up. I forgot he literally cut fire in half. Oh man.
So,
Other,
let's go to
let's
Dio.
let's do it.
I think we should probably start at Darby. I think we should start at Vanilla Ice because that's really where the buildup began.
It is, yeah, definitely.
Like you have them play video games, and then there's this massive villain stand user Vanilla Ice who has the stand cream, which
Hmm.
literally anything it touches disappears.
Yeah,
And
just
yeah, Jojo's not there, so you know something's about to go down because he
hmm.
literally can't stop.
Yeah, and
So,
it's just this horrifying void. They're basically fighting a black hole.
mhm. And the only reason they're not instantly dead is because Vanilla Ice can't see when he's using it, which is
Hmm.
it's absolutely terrifying. Like the he'll be rolling around, sucking up everything, and he's also a vampire, so he's a lot. He has a stand, but he's also superhuman. So he's
Yeah,
not. You can't really take him out with a normal sword or fire or anything. It's
I can't actually remember what they do to him.
he breaks down the wall, and that defeats him because he has to emerge, and he doesn't know the wall's broken down. So then the sun shines in and gets him.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's right. But
But
yeah, he fucks up two of the members of the group.
yeah,
He's
Iggy
the
and
most
Avdol.
effective stand user by far.
He just got done having a fantastic arc with Iggy, and Avdol is a fan favorite, and they're just
Hmm.
gone.
Yeah, fucking eviscerated.
I'm just looking at this now, but he got 3 parts for his fight, and I thought that was like one. Like I thought
Hmm.
they were switching back and forth between him and Jotaro, but no, he got a full 3 parts, and that drew me in. I
Yeah,
didn't even.
that fight definitely makes use of all three parts.
Mhm. And
I really wish they killed like Kakyoin there. And I
yeah,
wish Jotaro was there to witness it. I think that would be interesting. Maybe have him have him break down a little bit, show some emotion. Maybe his
yeah,
wall that he's built up, like show that he cares about these people a little bit. I think that
but
would have been a really interesting moment.
Uh, yeah, but he's the Jojo for this part. He can't show emotion unless it's anger.
But all the other ones do. This
I
is
mean,
just Jotaro, and I get that's his shtick, but
I'd argue Josuke doesn't really show any much emotion, but
no,
I don't
because his the death of his grandfather
Oh,
is very significant. He's happy-go-lucky and he's angry.
mhm,
He cares deeply when his friends are. When he believes that God, what's his name? Okuyasu. He thinks he's dead.
uh, I
There's a lot of emotionality from Josuke.
I feel like Josuke just didn't get enough, I don't know, death because, you have, uh, Crazy Diamond and he just prevents anything from really like, you get 1 or 2
Hmm.
major character deaths, but they're not people who Josuke would actually care
Yeah.
about.
Oh, Okuyasu should have died.
Oh, for sure.
He shouldn't have come back.
At least get
100%. But
Sahando
at
embrace
least
death.
no, it's not even that. He just doesn't. Okuyasu's too stupid to die. But we're talking about the wrong part.
Yeah,
We
so
should do an
we're
episode about part 7, brother. I know it's not anime, but maybe you could go to the manga
uh,
mall or something. The manga
yeah.
madhouse.
But we'll see. I might skip over to part 7 because I love that part dearly.
Mhm.
That is
But
mm,
I can talk about all of them. They're all good. They're all
anyway,
worthy of some form of discussion. But yeah,
we should probably get back to Dio's world.
back to Cream.
Well, we kind of did Cream.
We did do Cream. Yeah, kills Polnareff. We get a lot of emotion from Polnareff with the death of Abdul and
Like what we
Vicky.
get from Polnareff we should have gotten from Jotaro,
Hmm.
I feel like. But yeah, live and learn. We get
Yeah.
later parts definitely learn from this.
Oh, 100%. If that scene were redone, it would be Jotaro with Polnareff and Kakyoin, and those two would die. And then the whole Dio thing would just be um, Josuke and Joseph, and with the introduction of Dio, Joseph would die and he would not come back.
Yeah,
That's, I really think if that whole ending happened again, that's how it would go.
most likely, yeah. But let's people are probably confused at what we're talking about. So
Yeah, let's get it.
Dio has uh it's pretty much I'm gonna quote the meme here, but it's the same type of stand as Star Platinum. But it has this extra bit where it can stop time for like 8 seconds, 10,
Hmm.
depends on how much she's trains it.
Yeah, it
So
depends on whatever they need it to be.
so he gets this huge menacing fight where he takes out Kikyoin. Kikyoin is got like surrounded by Hierophant Green to try and find out what Dio's power is, and Dio just one shots him, fucking
Hmm.
donuts him,
And it stops time and just completely obliterates him.
and it is terrifying because we don't know he can stop time yet.
Hmm. Yeah, as the viewer, you have no idea what just happened.
He was just there, and then Kikoin's dead.
Hmm.
There's like, and then Joseph, because Kikoin as he dies, he figures it out that it can stop time, so he shoots a clock.
Hmm.
So Joseph finds that out, but then Dio, as he's going to tell Jotaro, Dio sucks out all his blood, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Takes all his blood to like rejuvenate himself.
mhm. So we've got like a overpowered Dio, and Jotaro is barely figuring out Dio's stand from what he got from Joseph.
Hmm.
So they go and fly around Cairo. for a little bit.
Yeah, just fighting through the sky, being thrown around by their stands.
It's a little bit goofy. I find that they were just like flying everywhere. 'Cause
Yeah.
I can understand Dio. He's a vampire. He could probably fly, but Jotaro is just
I
using Star Platinum.
This is one of those things that I have heard, and then this got me. I heard that in the manga, they're not flying, they're jumping everywhere. And I was like, that's interesting. And
I
I
feel like
checked, and in the manga, they are. It's not that they're being like, you know that weird super jump they can do with their stands, where the stands throw them in the air? That's
yeah,
what's implied to be happening. But they
I
just
feel like
cut that for time, and then the amount of dialogue that
yeah,
happens midair is so long.
like in a manga, you can have them jump and say like an entire paragraph, and it could make
Yeah.
sense because it's one panel, but you have to keep the action
Mhm.
going for something else, for an
So
anime.
they could fly. They could just fly in this one. And I accepted that. I was like, sure. There
So
are a few things in this fight that I think
yeah,
are worth mentioning because everyone loves this fight.
it is a great fight.
It's
Uh,
iconic. There's some
so
things that happen that are insane and shouldn't have been in the fight, I think. The magnet thing, how do you feel about the magnets?
I I found the magnets weird. It was like
So, for the viewer, Jotaro learns that Dio can stop time. And so basically what he does is he puts a magnet in his coat and one on his hand so that when Dio stops time, he'll see Jotaro moving and therefore think Jotaro can stop time as well. And I have some questions about that because if time is stopped, why would the magnet work?
I think
And
Dio just wasn't thinking because
yeah,
it's clearly just Jotaro moving.
because then we find out that because also a magnet doesn't pulse. He's like shaking his finger. It would just pull and then pull it closer, and it would just that's all it would do.
Yeah,
But Jotaro, giant brain apparently, has figured out that he can also stop time because it's the same type of stand as the world, and therefore he can, which never happens ever again.
yeah.
He can
No.
move in stopped time, put the magnets there to create a fake explanation so that to scare Dio into thinking he can, give Dio the reassurance that he can't, and then move in time, stop time anyway.
Yeah, it's
Didn't
weird.
need to be in the fight. That didn't need to happen in the fight at all.
And I'm looking again through the synopsis of the episode. Jotaro fucking stops his heart during the fight just to fool Dio.
Yeah, he
It's
has Star Platinum reach into his chest and stop his own heart.
would we've never seen anything Star Platinum do anything like that before, I don't think.
Nope.
He's
He
just
never does
pulling
it again
power.
afterwards.
I mean, he does it once, and that's it.
He does it. He does it once to contradict everything we know about stands and how they work.
Well, I was he does it once again,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, which is
But
great. He does do it again, but in a way that itself causes problems for the rest of the narrative.
yeah,
Those are weird things. Don't they just detract from an otherwise amazing fight, right?
yeah. So I don't so Jotaro gets in I think he gets in a punch on Dio, and
Mm,
that sends Dio into a rage, so he's going full force. He kills a couple
mm,
civilians, absorbs their blood, and then stops time and throws a fucking road roller at Jotaro.
Yeah, he does. And that's
It's
probably one of the most iconic visuals to come out of the show and manga.
yeah,
Him
so
dropping a fucking steamroller onto him.
and then Jotaro's like, nope, stops time himself and then kicks Dio in the shin, or
Mm-hmm.
and that that's the
So
fight.
the whole stopping time thing, they can each stop time for a certain number of seconds.
Mhm.
But really what that means is they can move in stopped time for that much time. Because Dio will use all of his movement, like 7 seconds, and then Jotaro will sneak in on him and use his time, and vice versa. Or they'll use it at the same time. But what's always confused me is there's no duration of time they have to wait, I believe that's stated, before they can do it again.
Yeah, it they just the kind of gentlemen's to not use it. Right.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, but it's awesome. You know, it's so cool and visually impressive that I don't really, you don't think about it while you're watching. You just think this is awesome. This is cool. I like this story.
I mean, with all the time manipulating stands, they should be way more overpowered, but they have this like limitation on them that's not
Hmm.
fully stated.
Yeah,
Like
the Part Five
Diavolo,
Kings Crimson. Yeah,
yeah.
that one's explained in a lot more detail, almost too much detail, to where it becomes confusing on itself.
And then you need a waffle video to explain it to you.
Hmm. Yeah, right. And then Part 6 with White Snake.
Oh yeah.
We will not say who the stand user is because that's a mystery for that part.
And Made in
But
Heaven.
Made in Heaven. CeeLo Green. If
God.
only there's an alternate universe where that would fit with the 2010s more. With with when it's set, it should have been titled CeeLo Green. That's the hottest take I'm gonna drop on your podcast. Sea
Uh,
Moon Green should have been Sea Low Green. Oh man.
Uh, I think you're gonna get some flack for that. I don't know.
I should. That's an evil thing to say. It's a horrible thing to put out into the world.
Uh,
But it's
we'll dive
true,
into that if we ever do part 6.
right? God forbid if we ever talk about part 6.
Bohemian Rhapsody. God.
God damn it. Alright, that's a whole bag of worms.
Yeah, we're gonna close that for now. Just ignore anything past Dio fight. But
Yeah.
anyway, should we, so yeah, so Dio gets defeated. His body disintegrates in the sun.
Mhm,
Jotaro burns a notebook, which will become relevant later. And
mhm.
then they all go back home. Polnareff goes back to
Yeah,
France.
well, well, first, Jotaro restarts. He pumps the blood
Oh yeah,
out of Dio's
I,
body and then back into Joseph and then pumps his heart to restart it.
and then Joseph, ever the prankster, decides to pretend to be Dio.
Mhm.
God,
And none of that should have occurred.
I don't. Despite Part 4 being focused on Joseph Bastard, I don't think he does anything. like,
He
of
doesn't need to
use.
be there.
Like,
I
the
wish he
one th
wasn't.
yeah, I'm trying to think of if he did anything, but the reason they called him, by the time he gets there, they are able to defeat the stand user
Mhm.
who they were needed his help with.
Yeah. And wouldn't it have been so much more impactful if we had a Josuke who never came to terms with his father because he was dead?
Ah,
And that he
I
had this completely different view of him than us, the viewer, because we have this lovable Joseph, but he just has this guy who abandoned him, who abandoned his mother.
it's tough because I liked that moment of bonding, especially with the baby. It was
Hmm.
I loved the characterization for Joseph, but I can
Yeah,
definitely see Josuke getting some more actually feeling more like a character if he wasn't there.
I
I
feel
think
like it would have been great for Josuke to personally forgive him rather than, oh, he gets to meet Joseph and see how awesome he is, like us. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
I think Rocky just likes Joseph too much.
That's true. I like him too, man. I don't want him to die. I just to serve the story, I think it would have been better.
God,
It's
that's why I
still
had to
good though.
that's why I had to restart it in part 6. He couldn't kill off Joseph.
Mhm.
Just couldn't do it.
He's not gonna kill him off in this universe either.
Didn't yeah, we're already past him, aren't we, in the timeline,
Yep.
technically?
And I don't. Does he? I can't remember the steel rail. Let's not talk about the end of part
Yeah,
8 yet. Other than I will say, a lot of people give a lot of shit to the ending of part 8. I think rightfully so because of a lot. There's a lot of ass pulls that happen with.
very similar to part 3,
But
kinda.
yeah, it's almost identical to part 3, and everyone loves that one. I'm just not a fan of the, pick a side. Do you think it's cool to do ass pulls or no? Because there's no difference between
Yeah,
Go Beyond and Star Platinum the World. It's dude, Star Platinum the World is more blatant. Do you
yeah,
imagine if Josuke could just fully harness Calamity? That would
yeah.
suck. That would be awful.
Star Platinum, the world go beyond, over heaven. Act 4.
If Josuke, yeah, Josuke, soft and wet Calamity.
Soft and wet, wonder of you.
But you know what? I bet you could make a better argument for him doing that because then you could say maybe as a victim of calamity, right?
Yeah,
He could become the personification of it. And
yeah.
maybe that's what the original idea was because it got cut short by the pandemic.
I mean, we are
But
fully in part 8 right now. We are
we gotta
people
walk
are getting
back. We
so
gotta
confused.
walk back. Dude, stay tuned for the part 8 episode. I've got a lot to say.
Eh, so that was Stardust Crusaders.
Mhm.
Fa- One of it's got some of the highest points in JoJo and lowest points of JoJo,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it's definitely give it a watch if you haven't. Start in part 1, obviously, but
Hmm. Oh,
the thing with
definitely
JoJo,
watch it.
the thing with JoJo is you don't have to start at the part like you don't have to start at the beginning, but it just builds on itself so much.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
if you haven't watched Phantom Blood before Stardust Crusaders, you do lose an entire depth of it,
Hmm.
which
And then you probably haven't seen part 2. You don't
yeah.
have that relationship with Joseph yet.
And then if you going forward, you a lot of Jotaro focused moments lose their value.
You could probably start at part 4 though.
Ah, me, uh, I I guess you could. I feel like
I feel like you'd relate more with Josuke if you did actually. Because then you
yeah,
don't. already know that Joseph is a cool guy.
But also then you lose out on that Jotaro lack of characterization and how badass he is.
Hmm. Oh
Which I
man.
feel like after seeing all that he went through in part 3, I feel like his arc in part 4 really helped him out,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you'd get as much if you didn't watch part 3 beforehand.
True. It depends if you watch part 3 and you want more of a characterization from him,
Mhm.
which is how I watched it. And so I was like, oh my god, this is great. Loving this.
But
You could definitely watch part 5 though.
oh yeah, part 5 is just out there.
Yeah, part 5 is just a story that's genuinely no connection with anything else, and that's kind of why I think it's great.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
get like 2 name drops from a previous part and that's it.
dude, you see Koichi for like 3 episodes and it's over.
He just gets
Past
treed
episode
on.
5, it never comes up again.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's a fun part.
Hmm.
Definitely. I kind of hate that the hype built up around part 5 because th a lot of people missed out on parts 1 and 2 because they were like, there's no stands in those parts. But
Yeah, people who skip to part 3, I think, are demented.
mm,
Cause this is you want to hear a real hot take?
go ahead.
Part 3 and 6 are extreme low points for me in JoJo. And I mean extreme low points.
I can definitely see that. I know. Uh, I I can I I can suspend my disbelief enough, but yeah, part 6 definitely has a lower point for me,
Dude,
and then
the fucking the green baby? What's his name? Not the green baby, the fucking guy. Who's that little shit?
uh,
Ah,
are you the little goblin dude?
Yo-Yo
Or
Ma.
ah,
Dude, I hate the whole. He's there for so long. Is it just? It's actually just like 2 episodes, 2 or 3,
yeah.
but it feels like 9. I I hate him so much.
I mean, I yeah.
Dude, he sucks. He's just annoying.
I get.
Uh,
I I kinda liked him, but then he wears on you, yeah, for sure.
but you know what though? There are some amazing moments in part 3. And there are some amazing moments in part 6. Like, as much as they're the low points of JoJo for me, that's still really good.
Yeah, it's not like Naruto, which is like you'll get an entire arc that is just a low point. It's
Yeah.
you'll get entire seasons that are just low points in Naruto.
Hmm. With JoJo, you will get a new, more interesting idea in about half an hour. And in part 3, I implore people, if you are bored to tears in an episode and it's like making you consider not watching it, just watch the next one. I'm begging you, you're not gonna miss much,
Yeah,
honestly, right?
I can't think of an episode that bored me to tears, but I can definitely say, yeah, you can skip that episode if it's
If you're not feeling Oingo Boingo, you will lose nothing by not watching Oingo
uh,
Boingo.
Oingo Bo you'll miss out on the Oingo Boingo theme song.
Dude.
The slap.
But I'm just saying, if you are not a huge anime person and you are in an episode where you're like, ugh, I feel gross,
Definitely
skip it.
skip strength and Alessi if you're not comfortable with stuff like that.
Yeah.
'Cause
And don't feel bad about it because
yeah,
this is the part of JoJo. This part specifically is the least continuous. It's the most independent, where 2 episodes will be almost completely self-contained. and have very little bearing
Yeah.
on the ones before or after. Very little.
Yeah. Yep.
So
That
if it
might
feel
change once part 7 comes out, because I can definitely see the anime taking that to be more self-contained. But
Mhm. Part 3 is the only one where if you skip 2 episodes, I don't think you miss out on any plot. You miss out on story, but you don't miss out on plot.
yeah.
Like you'll know what's happening.
I mean, you might be a bit confused if you skip 1 or 2 episodes, but yeah, you should be fine.
Yeah, you'll because there's the announcer.
Oh yeah, forgot he
He'll just
existed.
come. He just comes on in the episode. Hey, this is where they are. This is what they're doing. Don't
Apfel's
worry
dead.
about it. It's very much like a poke. It's weird to describe it this way, but it's like a Pokemon-esque feeling. You
It
know, it's like
yeah,
there's a bigger thing going on, and you're missing out on the character moments. But they're
that
not
might
gonna call back to it specifically.
that might be why I like this part because I didn't make the connection, but it is very much Pokemon. Like you'll have a battle or
hmm
some kind of thing, and then you'll just move on. Maybe you'll have a new party member, maybe someone will have got new power, but it doesn't matter.
hmm
It,
The stands are almost identical to Pokemon. They come on, they have their one thing, and it's how are we gonna fight this Pokemon? It's very similar. Yeah. Watch the part. Watch part 1 and 2. It's short. It's like 20 episodes combined.
yeah, it,
If you
you'll
like
enjoy it.
those, you'll get through part 3. If you get through part 3, you'll love part 4. By the time you hit part 4, you want something different, and you get that with part 5. I
And then
can't. I can't make any promises about part 6.
if you can make it through part 6, definitely go for the mangas. Because if you've already watched part 6, you want more Jojo, and you will love part
hmm
7.
Part 7 is such a return to form. Part 6 has one of the highest points in all of JoJo, but the rest of the parts really mediocre and some of it's really bad. It's
Uh,
such peaks and valleys, right?
yeah. I mean, you got like
It's
the high point of Flaccid Pancake and the low point of uh,
Flaccid Pancake. Those bastards changed his name. Limp Bizkit. Those cowards.
how dare they?
No, part 6. Honestly, actually, Limp Bizkit and Hermes, her story, is a high point for me.
Mhm.
That's really interesting. Foo Fighters, great character, has some really interesting, like, philosophical questions. Not directly in the part, but at that point, I'm guessing you're thinking about the show.
Yeah,
And the ending is fantastic.
great ending.
But
Definitely,
Jesus Christ, man, some of those middle episodes, those middle arcs, fuck
yeah,
me, dude. I couldn't give less of a shit about some of those characters.
def
What's
definitely like the
the
Survivor part.
oh,
Definitely
yeah.
was a
Oh fuck me, dude. Yeah. Anything that doesn't directly deal with. Yeah, and honestly, some of it is just so boring.
yeah.
Skip
Uh,
episodes in part 6, read summaries. If you're feeling sad, the ending's worth it. Don't feel bad if you just read a plot summary for an episode. Cliff notes it.
anyway,
I've
I
done
think
it.
we're about at time.
I
So,
think we are.
go check
That's
out No Pain, No Gain. De
yeah.
Definitely great podcast. Do you want to plug your stuff or?
Yeah, you can find us on YouTube. No Pain, No Gain. We're also on Spotify under the same name. Both work. Love to have you. Yeah, that's about it. We've got an Instagram, Twitter, both No Pain, No Gain. So pretty easy to find us. Just Google search.
Definitely check them out. They're one of the best podcasts I've listened to. Anyway,
Hell yeah.
well, I'd love to have you back on if you have had fun on this. Maybe
We
for
should, yeah,
part 5, maybe for part 4. We'll see.
yeah, we should continue this. Yeah,
Yeah.
next time you do a JoJo episode, I'll be there.
Make sure Micah joins because I want to see him react to this stuff.
If we'll talk about the later parts. I'll see if I can get him to watch part 1 and 2, and we'll do the whole thing about just his introduction to the series and what he thinks about it.
I'd love to do like a localization tier list with him if he ever gets on, because
Oh, that would be fun.
FFA CP would definitely be.
Filthy X at a reasonable price is a brilliant name. God bless it. If the
But
dude, they're not gonna use it. They're just gonna use D for C. But a man can dream.
so sad. Yeah. Well, signing off for now. This has been the Anime Asylum. See you guys.